Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's still morning, right? I think so. All right. Thanks for coming out. My name is Ryan. I lead the product and engineering teams around the Power Platform Intelligent Applications. We have an awesome session today, a ton of content, lots of customer stories, 3 live demos, 100% real code, tons of new stuff to cover. But I want to kind of start by actually putting us in context of the journey that we've been on in Power Platform and particularly around applications in Power Platform. The last public number we shared is that more than 25 million people use Power Apps inside their companies every single month. You'll see I've updated the chart here. That number continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger at an incredible rate. And that is just a tiny fraction of what Power Platform is doing overall. When you look at all of the hundreds of millions of people using Power Pages websites or now interacting with Copilot Studio agents externally, this platform is really becoming mainstream in the way that we build business software and roll it out to our users. And part of what's growing here is not just the number of people using it, but also the sophistication of what they're using it for. Moving beyond simple citizen development and bottoms up to really becoming central to how whole companies are thinking through their digital strategies. And I want to highlight 3 examples of that at varying sizes of organization and industry. Luray is a really cool story. This is one of the largest sustainable fish farming and seafood providers in the world. They're based in Norway. There's about 4,000 people in this organization. 100% of them have access to Power Apps Premium. 100% of them work under managed environments. And they're starting to really roll out real pieces of operational software that are saving tens of millions of dollars. They have applications for assessing weight of salmon as they're growing inside of fish farms and optimizing cost of feeding. They have applications on mobile devices for people on boats way out in the North Atlantic. They're really doing at all of the last mile of how the organization operates. Let's kick up a level in organizational size and change industries and go all the way to Northern California. PG&E, one of the largest utilities in the country. About 75–80% of their 24,000 employees use a Power App every single month. They believe they've saved $75 million a year in operational costs. And they're using that as a basis to roll out intelligent applications and agents as well. In fact, there's one Copilot Studio agent at PG&E that has reduced the volume of manual tickets in their IT help desk by up to 40%. And that's saving them alone $1 million a year in vendor spend. And they've built a whole community around this. They've trained thousands of people, both in technical roles and non-technical roles. They have hundreds of Power Platform solutions blessed by IT in production and thousands of things built in the long tail by citizen developers. We'll go up another notch. Heineken. A lot of us are familiar with this brand. Maybe you became familiar with it last night even. This is an organization of over 90,000 employees, almost 100,000 people. And again, 100% of them have access to Power Apps Premium capabilities. Now, amazing governance rolled out at scale. More than 73,000 monthly active users on the platform. They've built tens of thousands of applications and automations. And the team that leads Power Platform at Heineken recently did a study. They zoomed in and studied just 43 of those apps in one little pod and did an impact study and said, what kind of value is that driving for the organization? Just from those 43 apps, they're saving 127,000 hours a year, and they've reduced about 4 million euro in cost. That's pretty good, right, for 43 apps. And the cool thing about those 43 apps on Power Apps is they're paying one price per user per month for that entire transformation. And so just 3 quick examples of how fast this world is transforming and how people are standardizing on Power Platform to drive that transformation. But look, we are certainly not done yet. In fact, we have a massive task ahead of us as a technical community. IDC says because of the disruption of AI, we have to go rethink pretty much every piece of software that's running out there today, and particularly for business applications. Basically everything that our employees are using today and have been using for the last 5, 10, 20 years is effectively obsolete. And so as a technical community, we need to think, how do we take on that problem? right? How do we go build and rebuild a massive amount of software in a very short amount of time? And not just rebuild it in place, but fundamentally rethink it. That same analyst report says that in just 2 years' time, 40% of those applications will have AI infused inside of them. And that represents a fundamental rethinking of the business process. And so that's really what we want to zoom into today is how are we making that practical in business applications on an intelligent application platform? And what does it mean to be an AI-first company and really actually put that into practice in our business processes? And we've got a lot of opinions about that here at Microsoft. You've probably been hearing all morning about not just Copilot, but people working with Copilot across a team of agents. A team of digital coworkers specialized on very specific tasks that help reduce manual effort and automate the repetitive things we do in organizations. And that concept is a very powerful one. It's influencing a lot about how we think about business applications specifically. We're really moving from a world of traditional development where things are sort of hard-coded effectively and rigid in their hard coding, both for the developers making them and then the end users using them. And we're moving from that to a place of intelligent applications that are much more dynamic, where user experiences are generated, workspaces are infused with agents that help automate that work. We're moving from sort of traditional static workflows into agents that are autonomous, that can deal with variance, that can deal with logic, that can reference sources that are not just traditional if-then statements. And we're moving from a world of governance being a reactive thing, Power Platform happening to you, to a thing that's much more proactive and managed in every sense of the word. And really all of those different trends are what are collapsing into what we start to think of as intelligent applications. Both what we're building, how we're building it, and how we're bringing it to massive scale. And we're thinking about that in Power Apps, but we're also thinking about that across the entire Power Platform. Really looking at how that works with automation, how it works with websites that you put out in the world for external users, how it works with standalone custom agents, all working over Copilot-infused workspaces and commanding networks of specialized agents. And this isn't just theory. This is another public stat we've disclosed, and this number keeps growing all the time. 2.9 million people using generative AI in Power Platform and the applications built on top of it every single month already, across a massive range of customers. And one of those customers that I want to spend extra time on today, in fact, they've joined us here, and they'll get up on stage at the end of the session and tell you for real about what's actually going on. But one of those customers is Wells Fargo. They have an amazing Power Platform program at Wells Fargo, and they've been growing their user base and their governance strategy and their critical applications for years. And we're going to zoom into not just this customer, but specifically around how they're optimizing branch procedures. When you walk into a bank branch, how to make that world more efficient. And we'll do 3 different parts of a demo looking at each of these 3 aspects of intelligent applications today. And we'll do it to highlight many of the new capabilities that we're rolling into Power Platform right now and announcing here at the Ignite conference. And so in this first segment, we'll talk about how those AI-first workspaces are transforming traditional software development, both for the builder and for the end user. And then we'll talk a little bit more about agents themselves and generating those agents from existing apps. Then we'll come back in a third section and we'll talk about management and governance and some of the new capabilities that we've just announced today of managed security and managed operations in Power Platform. So if that sounds like fun, Clay is up here to get us started in the first segment. Clay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Hi, everybody. We're going to jump right in and start talking about branch procedures at Wells Fargo. Think about them as effectively the operations manual the team members and branch use to operate. A large part of that is the forms and agreements that they use throughout the branch and how they work with customers. For this example, we're going to see what we can do on the Power Platform today to build a solution to simplify that forms management for Wells Fargo. So I'm going to start from make.powerapps.com, and I'm going to jump in and give a description of my problem. I want to help branch team members and bankers at Wells Fargo find and submit the correct forms. I haven't started with technology, I'm starting with the business problem. I'm even going to upload and give it an ERD to help frame some of the data model that I want included as well. I'm going to go ahead and kick that off. And as first step of our plan designer, our sort of user and requirements agent is going to break down that problem and start articulating it as user roles and the requirements for those roles. I haven't had to start with code. I haven't had to start with UI or even a data model. I'm starting on the most important factor, the end user, and ultimately what they need. So what you can see now is the plan designer is starting to break this down for me, giving me a description of what the branch team member needs to do, their description of their role, and then specific requirements, as well as the banker. This is an iterative process though. So I can come in here and go, those aren't perfect, I want to make a change. So I'm going to jump in here and say, actually add a role for the branch procedures team as well. I want them to get some oversight of these processes, be able to manage forms in the background. And this is the whole point of the plan designer, is that this is iterative. I give feedback and Copilot helps me articulate and break down this problem. I can also refer back to this at any point in my solution development as well. 6 months' time from now, a year's time from now, I still have context of who we built the solution for and why we built it. So it's expanded that out. I'm going to say that's a great description and move ahead to the next step. Now it's going to take me to start looking at a data model with our underlying data modeling agent to start breaking down this problem and build a solution. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in the interest of time. This is the same plan we were looking at a couple of steps ahead. And so what you can see is the plan designer's taken those requirements and moved forward and proposed a data model for me to work on as well. I can jump in and see it in a visual ERD in the data workspace and start even looking at some of the sample data and columns that it's proposed to help me get building. Now in this example, for simplicity, we're going to build this solution over Dataverse, but you could, in many cases, just like Wells Fargo do, connect through virtual entities or connectors to your system of record where your data is being maintained. Once we've got the data, we're happy with it, we can start building our user experiences. And so what you'll notice here is it hasn't just built me a single app, it hasn't just built me a single screen, but it's proposed multiple experiences that are needed to help with this solution. So it's come back and said that our branch team members probably need a more targeted Canvas app, and our back-end office is going to need a management app for branch procedures. And then lastly, we also want a flow to notify when new forms are submitted. This gives me a much more comprehensive view over the Power Platform and helps me define the solution architecture of what I'm going to build. So we're going to jump, first of all, straight into that app that it can create off the Canvas app. So this is a simple template, but we get you started with the scaffolding of the app in the background. So I get a welcome screen, and I get some basic screens to go in and work with my form information. Everything that you're seeing here is generated based off that initial prompt and the data model that it's produced in the background. Once I'm in here, it works like any other Canvas app. I can start coming in, edit my images, change my theme, and start building on this app to see how it grows. Jumping ahead to one that I prepared earlier. Oh, and my internet dropped out, so let's refresh there. We jumped ahead to one we've prepared earlier, but really I've taken that same base framework of the app that the plan designer generated for me. I've come in, I've applied theming, put in some Wells Fargo imagery, and relayed out the app. Once I get back into this app, then I can still continue to use the Canvas tools that I know and love today in the same way I would before. I can use PowerFX to write logic. But at the same time, Copilot's going to continue to assist me then working with expressions and working with formulas as I go into the studio as well. Hopefully. Okay, we might jump ahead to, well, one more second, and then I'm going to step ahead. We'll talk about model, and then we'll come back to Canvas. So let's go look at one of our other apps. We'll jump back to that one in a moment. The other solution we could have built here is then the back-end app for our branch procedures team. So I can come in here, I see it proposed in the list. I can click and jump directly into the studio. So what it's doing now is it's going to grab those tables that are required for this app and propose a model-driven app that I can start using. Now, benefit with model-driven app is I get a huge amount of UI and functionality immediately out of the box that I haven't had to configure, I haven't had to build upon. So it's pulled through my forms. I get a basic view here. I can see forms, and I can see form submissions. Now I can go through using the different designer tools, add the right fields, add the right data, and get this app out into production. Oh my God. I'm clearly having some internet issues today. So jumping in now to the actual app, we've taken it forward a little bit. we've loaded in some data, and you can see that we've submitted a section of power of attorney rows. So what I'm going to do here in this first one is I'm going to show a chart on the left-hand side here. I can navigate through records. I can create new ones. Where the data agent within the app for me now starts coming into play, this is completely out of the box, I haven't had to write any code for this, is I can start coming in here, for example, and saying, I'm actually looking for power of attorney forms that are older than 2 years. I type it in natural language directly at the top of the grid, and Power Apps is able to go break down what I was requesting, come back and present the data to me in an easy and presentable way. I haven't had to understand the data model. I haven't had to understand all the fields. But you can see here it's finding me active records that were effective since the 19th of November, 2022. And I can keep expanding on this as well and say I even want to look at just the ones from California. Again, as an end user, I'm not familiar with the data model. I don't need to be building complex queries. And I can still use the visual elements to navigate and interact with the data as well. Now let's go ahead and we're going to jump into one of those records. And what you'll notice is the first thing that appears at the top of the screen is a Copilot summary of the record that I'm looking at. There's over 80 fields on this form. I have not had to go through and look at every single one of them to understand what's going on. I get a really quick and easy summary saying there is a document for Andre, it's designating Natasha Jones, and it's effective since November 15th. This is a customizable summary that you can put on each table within the system to assist end users in getting the right information really quickly out of their application. Now we're going to go one step further and create a new record. Now, if you had seen some of our demos recently, you would have seen that we supported functionality where you could like copy and paste an email or an Excel table directly onto your form and we would map it. We're taking that one step further now. And what I'm able to do is, let me open up and show you a power of attorney form here. This is a completed contract that's been scanned. You can see there's a bunch of information in here. Now, traditionally, I would open these up side by side and start typing. If I was really lucky and it was an editable form, I might be able to copy and paste field by field. What I'm going to do instead is just drag that over onto my form, into the form fill bar here, and my hands are off the keyboard, so you can see that I am not doing anything while it's doing this. But it's analyzing that, and it's just found 16 suggestions from that one image to add into the form. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
All of these fields as I come in, I can hover over the information here. I get context of where it extracted it from the document. I can accept and reject individual fields, or I can accept all 16. It's taken a huge amount of time for manual entry, reduce that down into my app. Now, let's jump back into Canvas really, really quickly. So this is the app I was loading up before, and I want to talk about what Copilot can still assist me jumping into this development. So there's a couple of things here that are particularly handy. The first is a lot of these changes I can write with PowerFX. I can use templates. But what I can also do is come in and use Copilot to help me write PowerFX expressions. So let's say I want this not to just be red, but actually to be variable based on the customer information. So I can switch over to base palette color here, and I can say, I want this, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to say, create a formula from Copilot. I could have written it there as a comment, and I'm going to say, check if the customer is missing forms. If so, make it red. Otherwise, make it green. Very simple. I'm describing what I want, and I'm going to go Copilot, ask it to go create it. And what it comes back with is the PowerFX expression that I need. I can click apply, and you see that my color's reflected down on the form. Quickly and easily, Copilot's helped me write an expression. I didn't have to learn PowerFX. It's helped me jump in on day one and write a relatively simple expression. Last but not least, everything I've been doing myself here. Copilot has been helping me. We also support live co-authoring in the Canvas, so multiple developers can be at any one time authoring. But we also support more asynchronous collaboration through code. So what I can do here, for example, is let me go to my submit POA form. I'd love if there was a review summary on the right-hand side here. So I can actually jump over to Teams, grab a YAML snippet that has been sent to me, and I can come back and decide where do I want to put it in my form, click paste, and paste code. And that's immediately added and reflected in the canvas. I'm able to do that now because everything in my Canvas app is completely transparent and available to me through YAML and source code. Not only as a developer can I copy and paste this and share with others, it's also checked into my source code repo and Git control as well for version control. So as a quick run through, but we've started with a business problem from a plan. Plan Designer has built out a solution for us, built a data model. We built a targeted app for our end users in the branch to submit forms, as well as a rich back-end tool for our branch procedures team as well.
Awesome.
How's that?
Thank you, Clay. Let's give a round of applause for Clay. And you should stay up here because we're going to keep doing more demo. But it takes a brave person to do live code demos over pre-release software and brand new stuff. And all of this is real, right? All of this is running right now and rolling out. In fact, we're very excited that shipping now on trains and landing in December will be a public preview for that Plan Designer. It's been an early access preview with hundreds of customers working with it over the last several weeks and couple of months since we first started talking about it at the Power Platform Community Conference in September. The response has been phenomenal. We're really excited about what you all will be able to do with this. This is really a big step forward in being able to break down a complex problem or even a current application and start to translate it and imagine it forward into Power Platform. And then as you saw with the demo, it doesn't stop at the plan. You go all the way through to be able to build and customize that application using Copilot and agents at every step of the way, all the way down to generating Power effects on individual components. But more importantly, the applications that you generate are themselves intelligent with agents embedded. And you saw the data exploration or reporting agent helping filter a grid, and you saw a summary agent helping describe a record. We're also very excited about the data entry agent, taking all those manual swivel chair tasks of typing into boxes and forms and just progressively making them easier and easier and easier. All of those things, rolling out now into production and able to, take advantage of in real workflows today. And that's part of the future of intelligent applications. But I would say agents inside of the app are only one part of that story, particularly agents that sort of ship out of the box by default from Microsoft. Really achieving that next level of efficiency will take tailoring and customization within each company and each organization. And that's where we're also really excited to roll out some new capabilities, both to customize the agents that come out of the box from Microsoft, but also to create new specialized agents from assets you've already built in Power Platform. To take an existing Power app that already describes a process and connects to data and use that as a jumping off point to go build a completely custom agent in Copilot Studio. So let's take a look at that in real code as well.
Thanks, Ryan. So jumping back into the app we built before, we've added some screens here to specifically submit a power of attorney agreement. And so this is a process that's done manually in branches at the moment. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to get validated, and it's done thousands and thousands of times across branches. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump in and show you a manual way that this could be done. I could come into an app, say I want to submit a transaction, say it's for $500, and I'm going to attach a POA form for someone else to review here. So I'm going to pick another one that we've got saved there, go ahead and upload that, and click Submit. Now this is submitted into my app. If we're going to do this manually, I, as another human, I would call the central team to validate it. The central team would come in here, physically review the document and go, it's an original, let me read the expiration date. Is it signed? Yes. What powers are granted? Is it revoked? Any additional comments? And submit review. While I'm doing this, the branch staff are actually sitting on the phone with me, waiting for me to do it. The customer is sitting there waiting as well. Now, so what we're going to have a look at is how can we introduce an agent into this experience to automate a part of this process. So what I'm going to do is jump back into Power Apps. I'm going to find my app from the home screen here. So you can see there's our branch procedures app. And from the command menu, I'm going to say create agent from app. And so what this is going to do is the few suggestions it's loading at the top here are actually based on the app that I just selected. So you can see it's saying, do I want to submit POA, review them, or notify of submission status? It's gotten this metadata from the app and breaking down the processes within it. So I'm going to say I want to review POA. I could expand on this if I want to, but I'm not going to, and just click Next. Now what it's going to do is, again, looking at how the app actually operates, break down the instructions here in the middle. So you can see what it's going to do is exactly what I, as the second human in that process, was going to do. I was going to read the document, I was going to verify it, I was going to make sure it's signed, I was going to see what features it supported, and then ultimately I was going to go back and approve it or reject it and notify the team member that was involved. I can just go ahead now, again, I could update these and expand, or go ahead and click Create. When I go ahead and create, I'll jump ahead. What I end up with is then my POA validation agent in Copilot Studio. And so what's this created is, as I scroll down here, first of all, you can see the instructions that we used at the start. This is how we defined our agent. But also as well, I have additional knowledge that it can leverage. So it's pulling from our branch procedure forms in Dataverse. I could also come in here and point it to a SharePoint site or somewhere else to extract and retrieve information from. And also the actions that the agent is allowed to perform. So it's allowed to go back and perform a validation. It's able to pull submitted records. It's also able to send me an email and notify me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into this app. And we're going to look at some of these that have now been processed by the agent. So we can see that first one sitting there. It got rejected. We can see why it's rejected. So you can see Copilot actioned on this record. I didn't do it manually. It says it's signed. Its POA is original and certified copy. It's signed and dated, but it grants powers for real estate, which is not what we're looking for in this example. So one of the criteria has failed, and so following its instructions, it's gone ahead and rejected it. I can also pull up the details here and see that this wasn't reviewed by a human, it was our agent, but I can get details of the session as well. I would have the same visibility in Copilot Studio. I get a complete overview of every time the agent is working over data, how it's treating those records, when it's escalating, and I even get user feedback to make sure it's doing its job correctly, and it's ultimately helping with the business process. Thank you, Ryan.
That's awesome. Thank you, Clay. This is what we mean when we mean people and Copilot then commanding a team of agents, and particularly intelligent apps working with those agents side by side. You know, there's still a need for applications and user experiences inside of the bank branches. What we're doing is taking individual components of those workflows and making them much faster and easier to execute without waiting for a human every single time in the loop. And that's just a huge step forward, particularly for organizations that have a lot of Power Apps already with a lot of these processes already described. Big jumping off point to go generate those agents. We're also rolling out at this event much easier ways to customize the agents that come out of the box. And you saw in the previous demo, Clay had that summary agent that popped a summary at the top of the record. That's now fully customizable using Power Platform for every individual record. And because all of these capabilities are built on Copilot Studio under the hood, even the agents we ship out of the box, being able to add knowledge sources, add actions, look at activity, that sort of extends to every agent in Power Apps, whether we shipped it or whether you built it as well. Now, this is the point of the show when there's usually somebody crossing their arms in the back of the room saying, wait a minute. I just barely got comfortable with everybody using, Power Apps and Power Automate. Now you're telling me that anybody in my company can take any Power App and turn it into an anonymous AI agent? Are you crazy? And I am a little crazy, but not that crazy, because what we're also advancing here is the ability to govern and manage and secure and operate the platform at massive scale. And we have had been in market now for almost 2 years with managed environments that have brought a whole additional layer of automation and governance and control and visibility to IT departments managing Power Platform, including Wells Fargo. And now we're expanding on that concept to really make it much easier to apply best-in-class security procedures and best-in-class operational mentality, a DevOps mentality, right inside of Power Platform, inside of the administration center and inside of the way that we operate as makers and developers. And to show us a little bit of how that impacts a Copilot developer and an AI developer, we'll do one last demo segment here from Clay.
Thanks, Ryan. So before I jump to admin, I'm going to keep my maker or developer hat on for just one more moment. One of the things we're extremely excited to release is the new monitor view for makers. And so what this is giving me is a holistic view across my applications, their performance and reliability. So this is not just an admin view, but directly for the maker, so I can see how my apps that I've built are outperforming in production. So I can see already across the top here, I have some issues with app open success rates. My performance from interaction and full load is looking good. So I'm going to jump into one of these apps that's having an issue. You can see, yes, I have had a significant drop in app open reliability over the last couple of weeks. But it's not just giving me data. You can see under here, it's telling me evaluate if the app should be shared with users, because all of these issues are actually being caused by a permission issue. So it's giving me direct insight, not just into reliability that there's a problem, but what's potentially causing it. Also giving the ability to download that log, go and act on those issues. I've been able to do all of this from the Maker portal without an angry phone call from a user that doesn't have access, and without sort of compromising my end user satisfaction. Now I'm going to jump over. The admin would have the exact same view. They can look at the apps and see a broader level across environments. Now that I've made my change, let's say I've either fixed security, I've made a performance update to my app, one of the things I want to do is be able to deploy that out into the next environment. So from my dev environment, we group everything together in our solutions. So this has got all of my low-code components that I'm building across the Power Platform that have been built into that solution that you've seen me making today. Now, one of the big differences of what we've recently introduced is this is all now completely backed and integrated with Git and full source code view. So not only are all those low-code changes that I'm making being checked in and committed into Git, I also have a view directly in the Power Platform where I can come here and see changes that I'm pushing from my low-code environment, as well as pro dev changes that are being pulled from my repo. So I can see here someone's come in, gone through Visual Studio and made a change to a web resource. I can pull that in at the same time. I'm getting to manage that entire end-to-end and inner loop directly from my Power Platform solution. Now, once it's ready to go, I'm going to jump to the overview and I can deploy it. The really nice thing about the deployment process here is we use pre-configured pipelines. So as a developer, I can say, am I deploying a regular deployment or am I doing a hotfix, and select the environment that it needs to go to. This is pre-configured with the rules that need to be followed, any checks or verifications, as well as the approval process that needs to happen. Let me jump ahead. As a maker, I can then also step back and take a new look at the deployment summary where I see all of my deployments happening across the environment. So from one single view here, I get a summary of any failed deployments. I have none active at the moment, and I can jump into a history and see what was deployed, the AI-generated deployment notes, and who it was approved by as it went through. Now let's flip over and put our admin hat on. And what you'll notice is I get a deployment hub here in the new admin experience as well. The difference here is I'm getting a broader view across my tenant, not just specific to me as a maker. So I can come in here, I can see failed deployments, I can see the activity within the pipeline, and I can see any deployments that are requiring my approval. So again, I get a summary wanting to deploy from Wells Fargo test. I get AI-generated summary of my deployment notes, so it does not rely on a developer telling me what changed in that release. We're actually doing that diff and getting that summary. I can add a comment and approve and eject. I could do the same approval, by the way, either from Teams or email as well. So now I'm at a point where I've made a change, I've deployed it into my prod environment. There's two last things I want to check. The first is I want to make sure my Copilot features are set up so my intelligent app is going to work as expected. I jump in here to the new Copilot hub. I first of all start with a great summary of readiness, learning, and what's new content so I can keep on top of it. But as I scroll down, I get a overview summary of how Copilot is being used across the Power Platform in my tenant. I can see active usage, I can see governance controls, and from here, not just get visibility, but jump in and perform action as well. So for example, I can come in here and say, I want to change how my app Copilot is being used in prod. So I can jump in and immediately start enabling features like Smart Paste, controlling how they're used and how they're enabled for my end users. And last, but by absolutely no means least, we're very, very excited to introduce then the new Security Hub as well. So now that I've deployed these changes, Copilot is being used out in my organization. Again, in the Power Platform Admin Center, I get a single and holistic view of security across my tenant. From here, I get a summarized score based on my security configuration. As you can see, mine is not great, but with a growth mindset and the help of the Security Hub, I am going to improve it. As I scroll down, you'll notice it's not just giving me a report or a summary, but I'm actually getting really targeted actions and prioritized in what I should go do across my tenant. So it's telling me here I need to go review IP firewall and auditing settings. And a simple click, I get a description of why this is important, why it's giving me this recommendation, and then I can jump into individual environments and jump straight to this setting. I'm not hunting and pecking through a lot of settings to find the right things to go do. I'm getting a very guided experience to improve my security. So there we've just gone through in that third act. We've deployed an update. The maker's been given insightful guidance on what they should change. As an admin, I've had ability to overview and approve those deployments. I've also been given a holistic view into my Copilot and security setup across the platform. And
That's
with that,
pretty awesome. All right.
you.
Thank you, Clay. Looks like you have some work to do to go improve your security scores. We're going to send Clay backstage to go work on that. But you can see how end-to-end, from building software in the very first go to all the way managing it at huge scale, we're driving this innovation. I want to come back to this concept of the fully managed platform a minute, because it's a really important one. Like I said, in a couple of years ago, we shipped managed environments. There's now millions of users under management actively using apps and automations and even Dynamics 365 apps in managed environments. Today, we're taking this big step forward by adding this concept of managed security. Making it much easier not just to assess a score, but apply best practices, whether it's granular role-based access control in Dataverse, or adding things like IP firewall or VNet protection, or adding a customer-managed encryption key. There are capabilities in this platform now that don't exist really anywhere else on the market from a low-code perspective. And then we're also at the same time expanding out the operational footprint, looking at what does it mean to really manage high-scale DevOps and really critical software on the platform right out of the box. And as we're doing that, we're also upgrading sort of this initial middle column, really thinking about this as managed governance. And from the way that you sort of govern what people do on the platform at scale, the way they operate a critical workload, and the way that you bring security to that, all of that happening on a fully managed layer. And these aren't just nice things to say, they're really manifesting in real product experiences. You saw that Security Hub in the admin center. You saw the operational experiences, the deployment hub. This is the monitoring hub that shows up both in the admin center and in the maker experiences. Another one that's lighting up from a governance perspective is just license management. A better view over who's doing what with Power Platform and what value you're getting out of it. And I would say that part, sort of what value you're getting out of it part, is a really important piece of the story. And I want to spend just the last few minutes on it before we bring Wells Fargo up on stage to close us out. Now, Forrester Research, we had them talk to more than a dozen Power Apps customers that all spend more than $1 million a year on the platform in premium licenses and do an economic study of impact. They have some phenomenal numbers, and they aggregate a model organization out of that of 40,000 people that invest $15 million over a 3-year period, not just in licenses, but in teams, in humans to go implement and execute. And they say even that organization, you should expect to double your money in 3 years at minimum and get a payback time of 6 months. But that's all rearview mirror. That same Forrester analyst team, the lead low-code analysts at Forrester, just published a report last week that says, hey, this AI movement really starts to change the game even further. And we expect a substantial shift in the traditional build versus buy software economics. And I want us to think about that, because this is really what's motivating a lot of these individual feature capabilities and investments, right? Is rethinking this traditional trade-off in software, which, let's be honest, historically, both of these options have left a lot to be desired, right? We could build software from scratch in traditional dev, and it would maybe get us exactly what we need if we're lucky, but it would take a long time, it would be expensive, and then we're stuck owning it in perpetuity, right? All that software we built 5, 6, 7 years ago, or we hired a vendor to build, did it get its .NET Core update on time? Is it TLS 1.3 compliant, right? We're owning it long term. Now, on the other side, we can buy software from a SaaS company, and theoretically, it's exactly what we need out of the box. We all know that's rarely true, but at least it's somebody else's problem, right? At least it's managed. But here's the real problem with this trade-off. It's not that we have to make it once. It's that we're making it over and over and over and over again. We're doing that for just one workload, say a training system around what's probably a core ERP system or HR system, something like a SuccessFactors or a Workday. But then we're making it again for everything else in that department. You know, Gartner says the average corporate department, has at least 8 business SaaS workloads that they're paying for, and at least 7 legacy on-prem pieces of technology orbiting around some core system. And then there's all the other stuff that fills in the gaps, right? There's all the Excel spreadsheets and swivel chairing and CSVs, and that's just one department at a time, right? Zoom out and look at that around every other major corporate office estate in software, and we've got a massively complex system, right? And historically, Power Platform provided a lot of value to a world like this, in a way that was additive or a layer on top, right? I could build a Power App that would connect to some of those systems and make them easier to run. Or I could build Power Automate cloud automation or an RPA workflow that would automate some of the tasks in a deterministic way. And then now I can add a copilot to connect to those things or an agent to work on them. And in fact, sometimes I can model new data in Dataverse. And all of that is awesome. It's starting to spring up in all of these different places across our organizations. And you might look at that at the surface and say, well, wait a minute, like, isn't that just more stuff? Isn't that just more sprawl? And the answer is actually not quite. Because unlike all those other individual build versus buy decisions we've made, all of these things you build on Power Platform are on now one fully managed platform layer. Same way to operate it, same way to secure it, same way to govern it at scale. So right out of the gate, you've got a big step up over the past. But now what if we start replacing those legacy systems? What if we start even replacing the B2B point solution SaaS products that we're paying dollars per user per month for? That starts to lift cost and time out of the existing software estate. And what if those things don't need to be applications at all, right? What if we can start to really rethink them as agents and automations? This is how we're going to get the best of both worlds, right? How we're going to say no to that traditional build versus buy trade-off. We're going to get exactly what we need. We're going to do it on a fully managed platform at massive scale. So I want to close out in the last few minutes here by making this real. We've been talking about Wells Fargo all day long, using them as a lens to look at how an organization could use all these new capabilities that are coming out. But Wells Fargo is actually using some of this stuff right now. And one of the masterminds of that for their branch operations is with us today. JB has traveled here all the way from New York. And JB, why don't you come up and just share a little bit about your program at Wells?
Great.
Thank you for being with us.
Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Chicago. It is afternoon now. I'm Jonathan Beck. I lead automated banker support and branch procedures at Wells Fargo. My job is to create a great experience for our frontline employees and the human agents that support them. Ultimately, if we get that right, we'll have a great customer experience. So for context of my business, branch procedures are the foundation of the house. It's like an airplane flying manual, kind of like a co-pilot. Get that, Ryan? A co-pilot?
Yeah, I got it.
And to serve our customers, we need to master a number of these documents and the steps to follow to make sure that we adhere to these branch banking procedures, as it's paramount to risk management and the customer experience. Procedures can be complicated. There's a lot of them. We had search, but it wasn't the best search. And as a result, bankers needed to get the right information in their fingertips quickly. And because of that, as you can imagine, a lot of these procedures were written a long time ago, some before the internet, looked great in a binder. And so because of these challenges with search and complexity of the documents, which, by the way, we're rewriting and simplifying, they would call our internal support team. And that would drive high operational costs and time away from our customers. And so we are now working with Microsoft and Copilot Studio to build a solution to help meet our bankers' and our customers' needs. Wells Fargo manages 1,900 environments, and the usage of the Power Platform has grown significantly. We have licensed Power Apps Premium for our entire organization, and we've created a really strong governance process to not only onboard, but to assess these different use cases. We've also rolled out a custom Copilot in every single one of our branches to meet my business case. We built a powerful AI-powered virtual assistant search bot, partnered with Microsoft to build an MVP in 4 months' time using the low-code, no-code solution on Copilot Studio. We tested and learned in 15 branches, collected feedback, made enhancements, rolled it out to 50 branches more, and just last month, we rolled it out to the entire national branch network in 4,100 locations nationwide. We're a month and a half in, and we've already seen 75% adoption, which means 75% of all procedure searches are using the Copilot virtual assistant. And we're just getting started. Ryan, back
That is
to you.
awesome. Let's clap for that. Thank you so much, JB. There are very few organizations that move that fast and that agile, let alone one of the largest financial institutions in this country and operating in many other countries. It's a huge feat to accomplish and a great testament to what's possible on a highly abstracted platform. And so, I'll leave you with that thought. This is really the time to make it real, to rethink a lot of our existing SaaS software, a lot of our legacy systems, a lot of processes that just aren't software today. But I will say the real innovation out of all of this is not stuff that we're building at Microsoft. Folks, we just make a platform. We make tools. You are the people that make it matter. The actual impact of AI in applications will happen through people who apply it to their organizations and their businesses. And I cannot wait to see what you do with that and to come back and tell your story next time. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for being you and doing what you do. Thank you. There are a lot of deeper sessions this week, and if you catch them online or here in person, in fact, we'll flash up some of them on the screen right now, to go deeper into all of these individual things. We have dedicated sessions on almost each one of these topics, and please fill out an evaluation. Thank you all. Take care.